This is All India Radio. In Spotlight, now we bring you a program on special briefing by Foreign Secretary on international cooperation on COVID pandemic.
As India battles a second wave of coronavirus pandemic, countries around the world have come forward to provide assistance to fulfill the requirements of several medical equipments and medicines in the country. Briefing the media in New Delhi today on international cooperation on COVID pandemic, Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla said the situation in the country is unprecedented. He said over 40 countries have come forward to offer help in the fight against the second wave of the pandemic at the special media briefing.
We have actually received offers of assistance from various governments. There has been quite an outpouring of, I would say, solidarity with India. There's been an outpouring of, let's say, assistance from various countries. Over 40 countries have actually committed to provide us with many of the items that we need most urgently. Our objective is to ensure that we channelize all of this assistance that is both sought by us and being received in a manner that is as effective as possible. In other words, how do we receive it? How do we ensure that we facilitate quick clearance, and not only that, we ensure that all of this is taken to different parts of the country where it is needed, most critical areas. In that context, of course, we have had very strong interministerial and interagency cooperation. Cabinet Secretary has been overseeing this process himself. We've also had the representatives of a number of other ministries, obviously the Health Ministry, Pharmaceuticals, Home Ministry, Civil Aviation, Ministry of Defense, Biotechnology, a range of ministries, agencies, finance, I shouldn't forget, have been involved in this effort. What we want to make sure is that all this equipment that is consigned to India, to the government of India, is expeditiously cleared. There are blanket exemptions from the different taxes, customs duties and taxes that they would have to normally undergo if such items were coming into India, how they can be quickly cleared. But also, most important is logistically, when we are talking about heavy equipment, oxygen generating plants, how these are taken to different parts, as I said, of the country where it's most needed. And this is something that has been quite a major effort. I mean, we want to make sure that this process is smooth right from the point that we identify sources of supply to the point that it actually reaches those of our citizens that need these items and this sort of assistance the most.
He said that India has helped many of these countries in their hour of need, and now they are returning the favor.
It is an unprecedented situation. We are dealing with a situation that is quite exceptional. We have certainly prioritized the items that we need. We are sourcing many of these items from many countries. But many countries have come forward on their own to offer assistance. And you've seen that in many countries, I think the fact that we have been responsive to their needs when they had the requirement. Keep in mind that the United States, much of Europe, many other countries have had a second, even third wave. So in a certain sense, when we supplied essential pharmaceutical products, whether it is hydroxychloroquine, whether it is paracetamol, or even remdesivir at that time, or we supplied vaccines under our Vaccine Maitri program, there was appreciation that we came to the assistance of other countries in pursuit of what our Prime Minister calls working for the common good, or in our concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Today, those countries, if you see what President Biden said, what the United States said, what many Gulf countries have said, many of our other partners have said, we appreciated your assistance. We are today giving you assistance in return. We have given assistance, we are getting assistance. It shows an interdependent world. It shows a world that is working with each other. And I must say here, we have been in the forefront of generating that consciousness that the COVID-19 pandemic is not one that countries should be looking out for themselves only. Very early in the game, Prime Minister has talked about the fact that countries need to come together to cooperate. That is why he initiated the SAARC conference on COVID-19 in March, when this was a very new concept. He then initiated the call for a G20 summit, an extraordinary summit. The G20 has always met for financial or economic reasons, never met for humanitarian circumstances. And we have extensively, I think, even sometimes gone forward to assist countries where they were very far away, they were not normally within our ambit. We saw so many Caribbean countries, Latin American countries, African countries. And today, these countries are coming forward and saying, what can we do? Mauritius offered us assistance. Bhutan has offered us, they said, we have 2 oxygen plants. Please use them for your requirements in Assam and West Bengal. Bangladesh is saying that we produce remdesivir. Please take some of our remdesivir. Why are these countries saying it? They're saying it because they feel that this is the time where we must help. India has helped us, we must help it. So I don't think we are looking at it in policy terms. We are looking at it in terms of a situation that is very, very unusual, that is very unprecedented, that is very exceptional, and we will do whatever it takes to meet the requirements of our people at this point of time.
Foreign Secretary said consignments carrying medical equipments and medicines have started to arrive in India from various countries. He said the US has pledged to help the country in its fight against the pandemic. Mr. Shringla informed that 3 flights are scheduled to arrive from the United States within a week.
We've got already a number of items that have come in. For example, the first flight that came in was the night of 27th April from the UK, which brought in a number of oxygen concentrators, ventilators and other equipment. Last night we had a flight from Russia, actually 2 special aircraft that came in from Russia that brought very large number of oxygen generating equipment. That means plants that generate oxygen. We have some 20 of those plants. We also had a lot of ventilators, bedside monitors. Russia also gave us favipiravir, which is in some senses again antiviral for COVID-19 treatment. We are also expecting tomorrow and over the next couple of days 3 special flights from the United States. You would have seen that President Biden spoke to Prime Minister. He offered extensive assistance. You would have seen the details of that assistance also from the United States. And of course, that assistance also went into areas like raw materials for our vaccine industry, etc. But the US is going to provide, at an initial basis, at least 3 of these aircraft coming in with much needed oxygen equipment and concentrators, other areas that we need assistance. I talked about the 3 flights that are coming in. The first one, which is tomorrow. 2 flights tomorrow, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And on the 3rd of May, we will have a 3rd flight. They will carry with them very large number of oxygen generating equipment. There will also be 2,000 oxygen concentrators, 500 oxygen cylinders, and I would say that capacity to provide 28 million liters of oxygen. Again, very much needed help both in terms of cylinders, in terms of actual oxygen, but also, most importantly, oxygen generating equipment that is very much needed.
Foreign Secretary underlined the priority areas that include liquid oxygen and any equipment that produces oxygen, oxygen generators, concentrators, cryogenic tankers, transportation equipment for oxygen. He said India is looking at getting around 550 oxygen generating plants, 4,000 oxygen concentrators and 10,000 oxygen cylinders from abroad to deal with the coronavirus pandemic.
If you want an overall sense of what is coming, in terms of oxygen generating plants, we are talking about over 500 plants. In fact, we are talking about close to 550 oxygen generating plants that are going to come in from different sources from all over the world. As I said, it is those that we are purchasing, it is those that are being provided by corporates, by governments, by private individuals, by community associations. It's a mix of all that, but we are looking at over 500 oxygen generating plants coming in the next few days and weeks. We are looking at over 4,000 oxygen concentrators. These are very, very essential for what we're doing now. We are looking at over 10,000 oxygen cylinders, which are also in some senses in short supply. 17 oxygen cryogenic tankers, some of which have already come in. You've seen the Air Force has flown in some of these tankers from Thailand, Singapore, etc.
Mr. Shringla said that there is an urgent need for pharmaceutical products like remdesivir and tocilizumab. He also informed that the several global drug manufacturing companies have assured to provide medicines like remdesivir, tocilizumab and favipiravir. He further added that India is looking at procuring 400,000 units of remdesivir medicine from Egypt, besides exploring to get it from countries like the United Arab Emirates, Bangladesh and Uzbekistan.
Gilead Sciences has offered us 450,000 doses of remdesivir, very, very essential in today's context. We also have been offered 300,000 doses of favipiravir, some from Russia, but also from the UAE and other countries. Tocilizumab is very essential again, very part of our priority list, and we are going to get tocilizumab from Germany, from Switzerland. Roche has also agreed to expedite their raw material supplies for the production of some of our very essential drugs, and so has Gilead Sciences. So we are also expediting raw material supplies, not only for the production of remdesivir, but also in terms of vaccines. What I want to say is that all in all, this is very vital part of our, the international cooperation is a vital part of our, meeting and bridging the immediate requirements that we have. Obviously, we are making every effort to step up our own capacities. For example, my colleague Secretary Pharmaceuticals told me that we normally manufacture 67,000 doses of remdesivir a day. Our 7 manufacturers of remdesivir that are authorized manufacturers by Gilead Sciences, but the requirement today might be between 2 to 3 lakhs a day. So we have to bridge the gap. This is something that our producers are well aware of. They are actually ramping up their production. We've had a meeting which our minister himself took, which the cabinet secretary also took, with all producers, and we find that they are ready to go from 67,000 to 3 lakhs, even 4 lakhs a day. They need the raw material inputs, they need the support, and that is something that is coming in the fullest possible way. We've got all assurances from Gilead, from the US government, that whatever requirements are there, we will try and meet it to the best of ability. We are also in touch with other manufacturers of remdesivir in Egypt, in other parts of the world, to see whether we can source this from those countries, and we are working on making sure that those gaps are met. So what we are talking about is short-term gaps. We're not even talking about the medium term. I think by the medium term, our own domestic industry would have been up to the task. You have seen that when we had the first wave, there was a shortage of masks, PPEs, ventilators. In a short while, we went from being net importers to net exporters. Test kits, for example, today we are producing enough test kits for ourselves and different parts of the world. I would say that the same thing will be seen in terms of production of remdesivir, in terms of production of some of the oxygen generating equipment. If you see in oxygen terms also, from our health authorities have made a very detailed presentation where it's very clear that our capacities have been ramped up even in the first few days of the second wave. And we have also diverted oxygen that normally goes to industrial units for medical uses. But there are logistical challenges. Much of the oxygen produced is in the eastern part of the country, whereas demand is primarily in the western and northern parts of our country. So we have to match the supply source with the demand source. We need equipment, transportation equipment to do it, and therefore cryogenic tankers and Indian Air Force has come in terms of making sure that there is enough capacity to do that. All of our missions and all of our ambassadors have been very receptive, extremely adept in meeting the requirements of the day. We've established contact directly with Gilead, with Roche, with all of the companies that are involved. We are working with governments, we are working with the private sector, we are working with associations, we are working with chambers of commerce. We are giving the topmost priority to meeting our requirements, our immediate requirements in terms of our healthcare facilities in combating the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. If you look at it in the next few days, if you look at the sort of capacities that we will be creating, we will be doing a very important role of bridging, by which time domestic capacities would have come into place. In the ministry itself, as I said, we have different teams working on different parts of it. We are very clear that this is the highest priority, and we will work extensively to make sure that the entire cooperation and coordination that we need with all of our partners, international partners, interlocutors all over the world will be smoothly interfaced with our domestic requirements and our domestic ministries and agencies that actually deal with this on the ground.
On the travel restrictions imposed by several countries in the wake of surge in COVID cases, Foreign Secretary said the measures were temporary. He added the cargo connectivity would remain unaffected.
In terms of movement of people, any restrictions that are placed are temporary in nature. After all, when UK had an issue, then there was a temporary ban from our side. When there was an issue involving Europe, there was a temporary ban. When we had issues from Southeast Asia, we had put a ban. But they were temporary in nature. Similarly, we believe that many of these restrictions that you're talking about today, and we are in touch with all our interlocutors, they've all said, look, this is what we are doing, but this is only dependent on as long as the situation is there. This is not even a medium-term thing. These are short-term measures. The second thing is that with most countries, we've ensured that at least we are open in terms of cargo connectivity. Air connectivity is there, whether it is the Gulf, whether it is Europe, whether it is America, whether it is Southeast Asia or China. The air connectivity should be open. Cargo should travel, and the essential supply chains that are involved should not be disrupted.
When he responded to the questions on whether there was a shift in India's policy of not accepting foreign aid, Mr. Shringla said India is not looking at medical supplies and assistance by its partners and friends in terms of any policy framework. Foreign Secretary said the assistance we have given earlier and the assistance we are getting now shows an interdependent world. He said it shows a world that is working with each other.
You were listening to a program on special briefing by Foreign Secretary on international cooperation in COVID pandemic. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.